Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Thank you for staying with us. The argument is being made that domestic refining of petroleum products could be a way out of the persisting fuel crisis that has crippled Nigeria's economy for a long time. Not everything about local refineries, according to those pushing the argument, is bad. But their position evidently flies in the face of the grievous destruction of the farming and fishing ecosystems, especially in the Niger Delta, where the unregulated activities of artisanal refiners continue to pose a grave danger to public health as well. Almost on a weekly basis, there have been reports of the discovery and destruction of these crude refining facilities deep in the creeks. But the irony seems to be the fact that these punitive measures are without meaning to further worsening the problem. The desperate tactics of highly connected oil thieves operating on the maritime domain seems to paint the picture of a losing battle for the security agencies. But the government says it's in control. However, the argument for local refining has been given a major boost by the extraordinary success of the Dangote refinery. But the question of how that can satisfy local consumption, solve domestic supply bottlenecks, as well as impact the soaring price of petroleum products remains largely unanswered. Joining us now to have a conversation around all of that is lawyer and oil and gas expert Sam Alboni. It's great to have you on the morning show.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning. So let's go straight into it. The argument for local refining as a solution to fuel scarcity is gaining traction. Now, from your perspective, how feasible is it, for Nigeria to rely primarily on local refining to meet domestic fuel demands and stabilize the price? And I ask that because, we're seeing this, the success, like I said in my introduction, of the Dangote refinery, the potential of it, refinery being private sector driven. Maybe that's what we actually need. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think this is really one of the positive discussions that we are having in recent past around this whole fuel PMS subsidy issue. With the Dangote refining coming on stream, it has shown that there is possibility for us to refine locally with the private sector leading. With what's happening in the Niger Delta, with all the pollutions, there's also a need to have some refining capacity in the Niger Delta. But I think the issues around refining has to do more with operational efficiency and the regulations. So the guys that are in the Niger Delta now that are producing oil illegally, I think we need to have some regulations to try and bring them within the circle so that we can be able to regulate them, because they actually will provide employment and actually help us with our capacity and availability of PMS. So I think it portends an opportunity if it's managed well, and it will be a winner for all concerned. So it will create employment for the local youths, it will provide availability, and also might help us with the pricing of PMS.
So can you clarify that a bit? Are you saying that we should normalize like bunkering or bring the bunkerers into the system? Because you said those who are doing it illegally now should be brought into the system.
Well, I think, yes, that's what I'm suggesting. Now, we have a problem. And whether we want to pretend or not, there are boys in the creeks that have tanks that they are putting fire on and producing diesel. You understand? And everybody in that area cannot pretend that they don't know and don't consume those products. So for me, we can't push it away. So I think the best alternative is to be able to get small and micro refiners that we can regulate, because now they are polluting the environment and there's no regulation. So I think government should sit up and find a way to regulate those small investors, even if it means to find a way to allocate them crude legally so they don't have to tap the line. But since that capacity to refine is already existing, I think regulation should go there and regulate that industry. We have a refining industry in the creeks.
But the federal government claims to be in control of the security situation around oil production and refining, yet illegal activities persist. In your view, like, what specific challenges, hindering the government's efforts to secure the sector? We spoke about punitive measures, not actually taking it all the way. When there's prosecution of certain people have been arrested, doing these illegal activities. So how can this be addressed?
So I'm looking at it from a market point of view. We know that the prices of PMS, if you adjust for inflation and currency fluctuation and the availability of PMS, we know that there's a problem with that. You understand? And we know that a few of the guys are using this illegally acquired crude into their own refining process. So what I'm suggesting is that these activities should be regulated, and the federal government should find a way to regulate it and allow these guys produce these products in a structured way.
I'm having very serious trouble with this, or trouble understanding this. It's because you said that they should give them crude so they don't have to tap, but they don't have to tap. They're choosing to do it's chosen criminal activity, right?
Yeah.
So I understand. I'm trying to understand if you're saying that this criminal activity is coming out of an economic need.
When we were in law school and they taught us criminal law,
yes,
they say a crime has to be defined. Mm-hmm. So that's why in southern Nigeria, adultery is not a crime, because there's no crime for adultery. Under the penal code is a crime. So it's the law that defines a crime. Now, we have seen the success. We started this discussion with the success of Dangote. Mm-hmm. Even with Dangote's 220 billion facility, he still had to get federal government to sell him crude in Naira for him to be able to make economic success. So for government to support private businesses is not a misnomer. Now, I'm saying that not every boy that has a pot that he's heating and boiling and refining product in the creek is a criminal. You understand?
But you said in law school that the crime are defined.
Yes, so what I'm suggesting is that if they create a process to regulate, register those refineries and create a process as they allocated crude in Naira to Dangote to regulate, to sell crude in small volumes to those small and micro refiners, is going to help in power generation, efficiency of the operation, reduce the price.
But it's still a crime right now.
That's
I'm just trying to clarify.
Yes,
it's a crime right now, just asking them to normalize the criminal activity.
To regulate it, yes.
But I feel like you haven't really honed in on what I asked, because what it is these illegal refineries continue to thrive despite these punitive measures taken against them. What alternative approaches should be considered to integrate these formal operations into, let's say, you're talking about how some...
You really didn't like my answer. If you didn't like my answer, that's a different thing.
Okay.
The alternative I'm suggesting is that instead of criminalizing these activities, let us find a way to regulate them and bring them into the regulated market so that you don't have to employ the punitive measures to stop them from operating.
What way would that be?
Regulations. Capture them. So you have an agency that regulates micro and small refiners.
Yeah.
You make sure that they have standards. And the government finds a way to allocate them crude in Naira.
Okay, I want to follow up on this because, again, I'm having a lot of difficulty understanding. But also, the argument for regulating this, you said, is to capture these people and give them jobs. It's sort of, I want to say, similar to the argument I hear when people say that there's amnesty for Boko Haram fighters, right? So that they can come in and contribute again to the societies that they once terrorized. Now, the problem with illegal refinery is not just a problem of capital or of the money you get out of it, but it's also the safety issues, right? It's the environmental issues and the safety issues, the potential loss of life, and that illicit money can be used to support other illicit activities such as drugs and arms dealing. So do you feel that this would completely go away, the environmental issues, the illicit ties to illicit trade?
If you look at the illegal activities that go on in bunkering, I think refining is just a subset. Most of the bunkering oil is actually targeted for the international market. So they transship it, put it on a ship, and send it in there. So there's just a small subsector. So what I'm saying is that I'm not saying legalize the whole bunkering space. We do not have to criminalize the refiners, because the problem we have now is that the refiners, the micro refiners, only source of crude is illegal bunkering. Now, if today you went into a site that local refining was done in, even if they bought the crude for value, they are criminals because they are undertaking criminal activities. Now, if you allow those micro refiners to exist, you regulate them, and you find a way to sell crude to them in Naira, their activities will not be illegal. That's the point I'm saying. So
but would they not still be dangerous for the environment?
That's the regulation. Dangote is doing the biggest refinery in the world. He's not dangerous because he's being regulated by the midstream authority. So if you regulate them, you're going to tell them there are going to be safety standards. You can't do this, you can't do this. We test your boilers, we test your temperatures, we test whether you're doing PPE, do you have firefighting equipment. So the question is that we need to create that micro and medium scale refinery industry and regulate it, and also make crude available to them so that they can produce. And we'll be creating employment, we'll improve. So all of us don't have to build big refineries the size of Dangote refinery. You understand? So that's the point I'm making. So we don't, because now when you talk about refinery in the creek, by default, you're already looking at it as illegal and part of the whole bunkering business. But I'm saying that let's remove that subsector of micro refinery, regulate it, and make crude available to them legally.
All right, then, if you can just touch on very quickly the heavily impacted, pollution that happens in the farming and fishing communities, as being one of the many issues that come with this, artisanal refining. Should there be? There should be a focus on that, but we haven't really touched on how it's affecting this, because you're talking about not, regulating and doing all of these things, but who now pays, for the consequences of all the damage that has been done?
So, we're making assumptions now. We are making assumptions that the refiners are the guys that tamper with the line and are the ones that cause the pollution. Now, as part of the refining process, there's also under pollution that happens, because when they hit the crude oil, the residue that is left, they dispose it in the creek, and that is bad. Now, if we regulate them, then they will have a process of managing their waste, which will be monitored by the government. You understand? So for me, to clean up their act, they need regulations, because if you allow them to operate in the dark, then you cannot regulate them, and these environmental hazards as a byproduct of the activities will continue. And the kind of waste that comes out of the refining process that the guys end up back in the environment is really very toxic and dangerous. And it's really important from a safety perspective that we find a way to regulate them. Yeah. Now, the current practice where you wear the big stick, when the guys, you have seen those videos. The Navy goes there and blows up those ships and blows up those tanks. They don't address those environmental challenges.
I want to ask a question as to why we're removing the refineries from this ecosystem. Like, if you compare it to drug dealing, you have the drug dealer on the street, you have the guy who's cooking the drugs, in the warehouse, and you even might have the guy who's trafficking it internationally. But you don't remove one and say that they're not responsible then for the social problems that are caused by drug use. So why are you removing refiners specifically, very briefly? Why are you removing refiners from the criminal ecosystem of illegal bunkering that's affecting the Niger Delta? Why are you removing refiners?
Because there is a subset that was created out of necessity. The bunkers' initial aim wasn't to refine for the local market. It's because of the pricing and availability that it now became attractive for them to produce for the local market. And I am saying that not everybody in the illegal refining business is a bunkerer or attacks the pipe. Some are honest people that don't have employment. They just come and because of that opportunity and use it. So for me, I'm saying that there's a social issue, there's a safety issue, there's a risk issue. And the best way to manage it is to regulate it. The alternative is to continue to use the big stick that we'll be doing. And we all know that the big stick is not being efficient and effective.
All right, then. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, lawyer, as well as an oil and gas expert, Mr. Sam Alboni. We appreciate your time and analysis this morning.